Human trafficking is at a record high in the United Kingdom. As many as 100,000 are affected. A large number come from Romania, where poverty and unemployment make vulnerable people easy targets. Why is Romania still such fertile ground for modern slavery? We speak to the survivors.
All of us see minimum one murder.
To those who save them from the traffickers who disgust them.
I believe they are creatures from the pit of hell.
And we confront the shame of their abusers. Did you destroy their lives? Welcome to Beyond Borders. Romania is a country where hope and despair sit side by side. There's a promise of everyday European normality, but beneath the surface, there is a very much darker side. This is a hunting ground for human traffickers. Occasionally, their prey escapes.
So we had a survivor who last year, when she came to us, when we picked her up that night, her legs were covered in cuts, in fresh cuts from the axe that the trafficker had used.
From the what?
The axe.
Axe.
Yes, sir.
The women we find here are victims of sex traffickers, living in a secret location now at what's called the Open Door Foundation.
Sinceră să fiu, nu mă gândeam că o să ajung aici, că o să dau peste oameni minunați și îmi place așa cum sunt acum. I like for start for work, or have one house, make my good life,
It doesn't get any easier when you talk about human suffering, trauma, and abuse. There's absolutely no way. The viciousness and the toxicity of what happened to them is beyond description.
Monica Bussev founded the Open Door Foundation to be more than just a shelter. It's a home where every woman begins a journey of healing and hope after escaping exploitation.
About 4 weeks into the program, she came to us in the office and said, we started talking. I was like, so, Evie, what would you like to do? And she said, I really want to finish my education. She finished high school. She, took her baccalaureate exam with flying colors and graduated psychology last summer. Mm. So at a graduation party, I never thought I could cry so hard. Just tears of joy.
For those people, and you must come across them in court appearances, you must see them.
Yes.
Who are the traffickers? What do you think of these terrible people?
Let me tell you this. I believe they are creatures from the pit of hell. They are. Not just them, but their family members. Usually, especially when they play the lover boy game.
Which is, I will look after you, I will take care of you.
You are the love of my life, you're the apple of my eye, air to my lungs, whatever, whatever is going to work on that person.
A prosecutor who defends women testifying against their abusers and has earned the nickname Defender of the Sluts in human trafficking circles, says threats come with the territory.
They are in a very high danger. I think sometimes we are desensitized to the danger and we are not aware of this. At the moment, we have a case with a minor of 16, you met her. All the ring trafficking is looking for her. They will beat her to death if they will find her and make her change her testimony.
How can you keep her safe then?
She has protective measure from the police and she was sent it here in this protective program. Nobody knows where she is. Although here it might seem just a normal house, yeah, we have lots of security procedures, but you cannot see them.
The official line here from police is that cases are falling. But the US government says Romania doesn't even meet the minimum standards for eliminating modern slavery. A combination of poverty, high unemployment, and weak social support makes vulnerable individuals, especially women and children, easy targets for traffickers.
Here is a metaphor for drugs, for video chat, and prostitution.
The story told to us by Larissa Budnario when we visit her apartment is horrifying but not unusual. She's 29 now, campaigns against trafficking and helps victims. Larissa was abused by her adoptive father when she was 15 and then made to marry a man that he knew was a human trafficker. Her then husband forced her into sex work and later sold her to another trafficker who also sold her on.
All of us see minimum one murder when we are there, because they want to scare us, to make us stay there. One of the girls stay one night with a big bear of iron, hot iron. They get inside the vagina, they let us wear singles. The girls say all night, we will be free, we will be free, we will escape. I stay all night with her to wet his mouth with water. And they come, the trafficker come into morning and poke. They get her on a plastic bag and they let me to make the clean. And I don't make clean how they want. They come back, they see the blood section into a corner of room, because I say, hey, if I don't escape by here, I need to, somebody know here was a murder.
Larissa told a parliamentary hearing that she'd been sold between traffickers in Albania, Italy, Germany, and across Romania. She maintains that large numbers of those trafficked as children come from the care system and says there is a close link between police and traffickers.
How do you stop it? Who needs to do something to make this end?
In general, the authorities. When the other authorities don't want to do this, it's a job for all society. For you, for me, for every person who know about human trafficking.
We're at a prison on the outskirts of the Romanian capital, Bucharest, and we're going to meet a man serving 20 years for human trafficking who was able to run his network from inside his jail cell. Valentin, who's serving 20 years, sees no irony in the fact that he trafficked children and has a Mickey Mouse bedspread in his cell.
Did they lock you up for a long time because children were involved?
Yes, under 18, but after that I still did the same thing inside in a prison. I get another sentence inside for the same traffic person.
So you were doing it, running your business from inside prison.
Yes.
How did you do that?
In this job, let's say, you have to, I think you have to know how to play with her mind, or they actually get in love, because if you know how to lie, understand? So if you do this in a nice way, then it's easy.
How did you find these girls?
On the internet. Here inside, in a prison, on the internet. But outside, you meet them everywhere.
But if a girl charges a client 200 euros, how much do you get?
Everything.
Did you destroy lives?
I don't think, because was never happened to get a girl from her school or from her family with like force her. Every time the girl, when I meet them, they was already doing this. You understand? Maybe 2-3 years ago they start to do this, and I never sent a girl to make money.
But you did send them to make money.
Yes.
Maybe you weren't the first person, but my question is, did you destroy their lives?
Actually, yes. Actually, yes, because... Yes. I think so, yes.
As many as 1 in 3 of those sent to jail in Romania end up back there.
Ce e asta? Un Lamborghini, cam cât a costat așa un Lamborghini? Te rog.
Here in this remote village in northeastern Romania, children as young as 10 are learning about the dangers of trafficking.
Cât costă o persoană? Infinit. Hai, prețul.
The methods traffickers use to ensnare their victims are varied, sometimes as simple as the promise of a better life, at other times more sinister, like exploiting trust and love.
Could you ask the class if anybody here believes it could happen to them? Would they put their hand in the air?
Half of all victims are children, and nearly all of those sexually exploited are girls, often from poor rural areas.
I always tell them in the presentation, I know you want to have a good life. You want a career or money or nice clothes or to travel. Everybody has a dream, a wish, something that you want. But when you admire someone, for example, look at what he did to get there. The long road is the safe road. Yeah? Not someone from the Facebook that will give you the magic wand. Look, take what you need because you are beautiful and that's it. No, things don't work like that in real life.
We try to help young people to be aware of the danger of human trafficking in Romania. A lot of people wanted to come to Sweden to beg from Romania and to send the children also to the
So
children.
families wanted this as a career, if you like, for
Yes, yeah.
a way of life for them and their children?
Yes.
The man behind bringing the presentation here shows me a local internet site with sex for sale.
It's there, it's easy to find. If 85-90% are doing this against their will, why isn't it being stopped?
Well, that's a very good question. I would say that this is a very good question that we should ask the authorities, because it's in their power to stop and close this website, or at least this part of the website, because the other parts of the websites are, good.
They're
It's
selling
just like
saucepans and clothes and things
cars
like
and furniture and
that.
houses.
So
and
why don't they stop it?
I don't know.
Do you believe...
Official answer.
Well, okay, but I mean, at the highest level, do you think there's a reason not to?
I don't want to, comment on this, but there are some reasons why it's not stopped yet, because it's public. Anybody can access from any simple smartphone. All you need is an internet connection.
The same US State Department report that described Romania as a primary source for trafficking victims and said not enough was being done to deal with that also highlighted a worrying new development. More than 7 million Ukrainians have crossed the border here into Romania in the last few years, and several 100,000 have chosen to stay. But perhaps instead of finding the safety that they were looking for, they were swapping one set of dangers for another. Which leads us to one of the poorest parts of Bucharest, where we meet a woman whose group has worked with the United Nations to release what it calls the practical guide for identifying and referring cases of child trafficking.
So we had a huge number of Ukrainians traveling through Romania, and this was one of the main points where they came. They didn't know it's called trafficking. They didn't know they were being exploited. They just said, I found this guy and he offered housing first, and then he made me sleep with other guys. And then I tried to run and I couldn't. So when she actually ran away from that place, she ended up in a location that was with one of our social workers or cultural mediators from our side. And we actually explained, look, this is happening. These are your rights here. Because their impression was that they don't have any rights here.
It used to be, I've been led to believe, that it was the poorer communities that were always targeted. But if you like, social media has democratized exploitation. Anybody is a target these days.
This is actually very much shown in our cases. We have girls who have a higher degree, right? A higher education degree. So it's absolutely everywhere. And yes, social media is now the pathway to recruiting.
And so across continental Europe to the United Kingdom, which in the 1800s was a major centre for the global slave trade. We're in the London Museum Docklands in the transatlantic slavery section. And I picked up this card from one of the visitors. It says they didn't have humanity, the slave traders. Thank God it has stopped. But the problem is, it hasn't.
Modern slavery is a hidden crime. It goes on in the shadows in society. It's often happening behind closed doors. So whilst we talk about figures, we can estimate that probably there's 120,000 people who are victims of slavery in this country right here today. I am frustrated that it isn't a priority. I think this is something that absolutely should be the government's kind of top priority in this area. We are now falling behind international partners in this space.
And that makes it easier, does it not, for those people who want to exploit the system to look at the UK and think that's the best place to go?
It does, and it also means some of the rhetoric that we've seen recently, which conflates human trafficking and people smuggling, means that it's more difficult for victims to come forward because they're in a climate of fear where they worry that if they come forward to report their exploiters, they themselves may face punishment instead of actually being able to escape.
Some headway is being made, as here with a Northwest police force that recently broke up a human trafficking ring.
This type of exploitation is low risk, high reward, and women can be sold numerous times a day, not just the ones like drugs. These are the conditions that we are finding potential victims in. There's mattresses on floor here. We've got a mattress on pallets on this. We have evidence of the money coming from males' wallets, so that would indicate that the females are not receiving the money themselves. What we did find in this incident, which was with the diary, is that although the female was saying that she was happy in this work, this was something that she wanted to do, she wasn't being exploited. In fact, when you read the diary, it will tell you a completely different story.
In just 1 year, you dug so deep into my heart. You made me be addicted to you and everything you offer me. I would start all over again 1 billion times if I knew I'd get your love. I'm no longer a human being, and my soul is wrapped in thorns. Why has he chosen me as his victim? the love I feel is slowly becoming my enemy, causing me more and more pain.
In the Lancashire police ranks is this new recruit, born in Romania, but now with a British passport, whose contacts back home give her a valuable insight into the sex trafficking trade.
We just got out of communism 35 years ago, and the views can still be, when it comes to women, that we are made to take care of the family, have babies, look pretty, and that's what we are raised to be, unfortunately. But I remember even now telling my grandparents, I'm doing criminology at uni, I want to become a police officer, and their reaction was, my grandma cried, saying, what would a woman ever do in that world? But what about having a child? We don't talk about sex in Romania until you're 18, 19, 20 and married off to someone, because it's shameful. But then it's not shameful when you do it to save your family.
How is it that there are men out there
Yep.
who are the absolute opposite? They're not naive, they're manipulators. Why is it that there are so many of them?
You're raised like that as a man, the strong one, the one that has the power, the one that has to be the head of the family. You as a man are not allowed to allow your woman to speak back to you.
Depending upon who you're buying, it could be just a couple of pounds.
Tatiana Kotlyarenko says sex trafficking is as much about demand as it is supply.
Because there's a pyramid of also worth within that system, which is hugely racist. So white, blonde, blue-eyed women generally would be at the top of that pyramid, and you would see African women, many trafficked from Nigeria, on the streets being sold for next to nothing. Just imagine this, you know, a young woman or man raped up to 20 times a day for, you know, months, years and such. We're talking about complex trauma. And we also need to understand that these people are trafficked for sexual exploitation because there's demand. They're men, specifically men for the most part, who are willing to pay and buy another individual for their own pleasure. If we really look at it, only about 1% of trafficking victims are identified all across the world. So if you look at that percentage, a significantly lesser portion of 1% of cases of trafficking actually ever end up in court, and very few perpetrators and traffickers and organized criminal networks actually end up being penalized for trafficking in human beings.
Back in Romania, we'd been hoping for some assessment that problems were being tackled, that progress of some sort was being made. But this human rights lawyer says that until links between organized crime, the judiciary and politicians are severed, things will only get worse.
What we see at the national level is the lack of political interest to fight against human trafficking mainly and organized crime.
And she points to new laws that actually help traffickers. Parliament deciding as a one-off to stop investigations into 600 trafficking cases.
Where does the level of corruption in the system stop? How high up does it go?
We have a lot of police officers that have been convicted in cases of human trafficking, but we are looking in what the politicians in the parliament are doing. For example, before the previous elections in 2020, the parliament passed a law, and based on that law, more than 600 files have been closed. Among these files, we have politicians that have been involved. We have the head of a police office that have been involved in trafficking in minors. So we see this connection. And now before the elections in October, so 4 years after, we see that this situation was was repeating, because a new law that is more favorable for traffickers and people involved in pimping was passed by the Romanian parliament.
Protection of a sort is being offered, but all those we spoke to here say officials greatly underestimate the numbers of those trafficked from Romania, not just sold into sex slavery, but also into unscrupulous labour markets and forced begging. Those whose job it is to end modern slavery are well aware of what goes on, but they appear to have little idea how to stop it.